We are back with another edition of Smart Driving Cars. Thank you for spending time with us. I'm Fred Fishkin, along with the Faculty Chair of Autonomous Vehicle Engineering at Princeton University, Alain Kornhauser. Hi, Alain.
Hey, good morning, Fred.
Good morning. It's chilly, and with us from Sweden, where it's even chillier, is consultant and publisher of the Dispatcher, Michael Sena. Hi, Michael.
Hi. Good to see you both again, Fred, Ellen.
Nice.
It's both dark and snowy here in Sweden.
How much
That's right.
snow?
Does the sun even come up anymore, or are
It's
you
about
like
8 inches. No, where we live, it still comes up for about 6 hours during the day. Yeah.
Ooh, geez, that must be so depressing.
No,
Sorry.
it isn't. No, everybody gets the same amount of sun. It just comes at different times.
I know. That is a true statement.
Yes.
In the end, it's all about the distribution of things, not necessarily their value at any particular point in time, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, the picture at GM Cruise is not getting any brighter. The New York Times has a headline reading GM to cut spending on Cruise self-driving unit. It says GM will substantially lower spending on autonomous vehicle efforts next year. Michael, you focused on Cruise in a new Dispatch Central piece here, and some interesting thoughts.
Well, yeah. Well, I sent out the one issue or the one article in the next issue that's upcoming because it was very topical, and we discussed it a couple of weeks ago. But then just after we had discussed it, a few other things happened. The CEO and his kind of co-founder both resigned, and the chairman of Cruise is also the CEO of General Motors, who makes more money than any other CEO of any other car company. And what my article tried to put into perspective was Cruise has been, in my opinion, Cruise has been something that General Motors has used as a foil, as a way of getting their value, their stock price to increase, as opposed to having Cruise, a company which they purchased and which they own, incorporated in a way into General Motors so that it had some sort of a future outside of what is its market value, how much money is it going to make theoretically. I mean, she's been promoting this company as a 80 to $50 billion company by 2030. And I just wonder where those kinds of numbers come from. I mean, Tesla is a $90 billion company. General Motors is a $150 billion company. By 2030, this little company it's not even a company. I mean, it's inside of General Motors, a wholly owned subsidiary. It's just making huge amounts or spending large amounts of money. It's not generating any income. So what I said in the article was that it really isn't fair for this company to be, and especially Kyle Voigt and his co-founder, to be taking the heat for trying to promote the company in a way that it shouldn't have been trying to promote it. The company should have been staying inside of its territory, of working, as well as it could within the context of it being second to Google, of not having the full capabilities that Waymo has. But instead, it's been pressured. I mean, SoftBank comes in there with lots of money, and they expect return, and finally they just sort of got out of the picture because they didn't see Cruise doing an IPO. This company was put into a position of having to do more than it should have been doing. So instead of taking the heat themselves, General Motors, it pushed it back onto Cruise. And so now they're coming, and I said in the article, don't do what Ford and Volkswagen did to Argo, saying, it's not doing what it's supposed to do, so we're just going to pull out and close everything, and that's going to be the end of the day. It doesn't sound like they're going to do that, but essentially, by saying that we're going to close, we're going to slow down, we're not going to invest as much money, they're essentially saying we don't see this company adding to our value, so we're just going to devalue it ourselves and let other people do it. They've stopped producing the car that they were doing together with Honda, which I think is a good thing, because I don't think that car was worth the money that they were putting into it. Four people in a car, everybody, on their way to the airports. I don't know what that car was supposed to do. So my view on this, yes, General Motors did all the things that they should have done once the problem occurred back in October 27th or so. They did their due diligence and they got everybody in there to look at it. But that was the horse had already gone out of the barn, and it wasn't Cruise that had opened the door. It was General Motors who had left them on their own. And these guys did, I think, as good a job as they possibly could without any real direction. And in my opinion, what the one thing that General Motors should do is to bring both of those guys back in, run the company as it should be run, and try to do something within General Motors, or sell it to someone who knows what to do with it. And this is what I'm going to be discussing when the lead article comes out, what Alphabet, Google have been doing with Waymo, which is totally different from what General Motors has been doing with Cruise.
Can you just, without giving away the whole article, sort of tell us a little bit more about how are these approaches so different?
We didn't really know what we didn't really know what Cruise was trying to do. They had General Motors and Honda together were building this car, and whatever that car was going to be doing and whoever was going to be running, it wasn't really clear. And Cruise has been developing a similar kind of business to what I think they thought Waymo was developing, which was either, on one hand, a taxi company, or on the other hand, an Uber-esque. I mean, these are two, essentially they're the same thing, but the business model is a little bit different. So in the article, in the lead article, what I tried to put into perspective was, if, let's say, Waymo was to become Uber in the United States, what would that mean in real terms, in real money? How much does Uber make in the United States? I'm talking not make, sorry. How much revenue did they pull in the United States with their Uber business? Any idea? Any guesses? Okay, it's 12 billion. If you look at Google is 99.99% of Alphabet. They bring in all the revenue. 57% of that is search. If you look at the other bets, they call them the other bets, and that's right now, that's where Waymo is. Waymo is in the other bets. That's together, all the other bets together is 1 billion. How do you get Waymo to go from something, a percent, 10% maybe, 1% of that 1 billion to being worth Google's time and efforts, and Alphabet's time and efforts? And that's what the article is essentially saying. If we're going to become a taxi company, the total taxi business in the United States, total revenue for taxi businesses in the United States, all of the companies all together, 12 billion. I mean, it's a zoo, and these are peanuts. This is not a business that Google has got to be in. It wants to be in, but Google is in some businesses that don't generate a lot of revenue, but they sure as heck generate a lot of interest and a lot of engagement. And if look at Google Maps. Google Maps isn't a moneymaker, but they're everywhere. Everything that Google is doing is somehow connected. Their search, that every little bit of Google is connected in that way to Google Maps. But it's not generating $24 billion in revenue like YouTube is generating. I mean, if you want to have something inside of Google that's going to be worth, it's not a taxi business, that's for sure. Because in addition, even if it did make $12 billion in the United States, wiped out all of the taxi companies, became the the only taxi company in the United States, Google Taxi, it doesn't represent anything worth anything. But if you put Waymo into the same business that Android Automotive is in, Android Automotive right now is beginning to eat everybody's lunch when it comes to navigation systems in vehicles. And it's not just Android Automotive, it's Google Maps. It's Google Cloud. It's all of the pieces inside of Google that makes something like Android Automotive irresistible to companies like, for example, Volvo and Audi and a growing number. I just saw an ad. I just saw something in the automotive news. Here has hired someone as the new CEO. The old CEO was there for 7 years, did a decent job. He left. They had interim. Now they've hired a new CEO. The headline is "New CEO, big job ahead of him to hold Google or Google Maps, hold on to customers that are being taken away by Google Maps." I mean, here has 80% of the car business, maps inside of integrated navigation systems. Android Automotive, Google Maps is slowly eating away at that business. What does this have to do with Waymo? Waymo says of itself, we're in the autonomous driving business. It doesn't say we're in the robo-taxi business. It doesn't say that we're in the Uber business. We're in the autonomous driving business. Waymo is Android Automotive. Waymo is something that's going to become part of every single vehicle, so that when we go out and we say we want to have a driverless vehicle operating in Trenton, we don't have to buy a Cruise. We don't have to buy a Zoox. We can buy any car. And any car will have Waymo Automotive in there to be able to do what the car needs to do. And we can run a fleet, which is, it could include, won't include Chevys as long as they own Cruise, but it could include, Chryslers. It could include any of the car companies who could integrate this in the same way that Volvo and other companies are integrating Android Automotive. They will integrate Waymo Automotive and become part of a fleet of vehicles doing driverless. So I haven't given away the whole article, only 99% of it.
Thank you, Michael. Alan?
Yeah, and Michael and I have talked about this, and I have, of course, a slightly a little different pitch on it than he does, but it's still fundamentally the same. Since the beginning, since the first time we did one of these, since the first time I put out a smart driving car newsletter, now, we're in our 11th year right now, and even before that, the consideration was that there's a whole spectrum of automation that can be brought to vehicles. And that spectrum of automation is we didn't do the levels, and always didn't like the SAE levels. Why level 1, 2, 3? What the heck does 1, 2, 3, 8, 14 mean? Why not put some semantics on top of it? And we decided to call it safe, self, and driverless. To sort of look at this. What we thought from the very beginning were the three markets for this technology. One is to have is to have a driver, a technology behind the human that is basically watching over the shoulder of the human, so that anytime the human either misbehaved or got him or herself between a rock and a hard place, would intervene in there and save the day. Having automated emergency braking systems really work. Having the vehicle stay in your lane when you should stay in your lane. And if you don't need to stay in your lane, then not sit there and beep the heck out of you and make you turn the darn thing off. Say it's okay. There's nobody coming the other way. You're fine. Do your thing. Have a ball. But if there is, bam, boom, make sure saves your butt. That was the beauty. In fact, used to have this image of this woman with a grocery cart in a grocery store that had a baby carriage in it. And I always like to say, you knew, even though that baby carriage had a little steering wheel for that tot to sit there and go nuts and entertain themselves while they're traveling down the aisles of a supermarket. That woman, there was no way that that cart was ever going to hit anything and injure that child. She was there. And in fact, that should be the way NHTSA should promote safety and automated emergency braking systems, such that they work when they're supposed to work, and the failure rate, the false alarm rates, and so on are essentially zero. Because all of a sudden, if this thing intervenes and puts the brakes on as I'm going down the highway, we know what the situation is. The Priuses did that, and poor Toyota, pulled their hair out trying to deal with why the heck. I mean, is it whatever? And I don't know if it was ever really determined whether it was, unintended accelerations or whether, it was human, whatever, pushing the mat over top of the, who knows what, whatever.
Wasn't that Audi?
I thought it was Prius.
Oh, sorry.
I thought it was Prius.
That came later. Audi was
Audi. I mean, they've all had
Audi
it.
was first. Yes,
They've all had it,
unintended acceleration.
Unintended acceleration. So whenever you do these things, the technology has to be really good. Not only to save the day when you really need it, okay, but not to be going out and saying, fire in a movie theater when there's no fire. and so that reliability, okay, is enormously important. It's enormously hard to achieve, takes an enormous investment, and that's where GM and Waymo and Mobileye and Tesla and everybody else should be really focused on. That's the safe piece. Let people drive and let them, whatever. You can cross the double line as long as there's not a car coming at you. And these systems should be good enough to be able to see if there's a car coming at you. And if they can't, then of course they shouldn't let you, and you shouldn't go there. But if you happen to go there because of who knows what, and there's no car, what's the problem? Let people do it. It is extremely hard to do that. Okay? And here we find crews basically encountering about, something that nobody thought about, I claim. Please let us know if you thought about it. Why didn't you raise your hand and convince them to take care of this situation? Or somebody that might end up underneath your car as whatever, and you braked and you went and tried to not hit her and did everything right. and said, okay, my goodness, all the firefighters have been giving us saying we can't block traffic. We've got to get out of the way. Geez, well, let's just move it a little bit out of the way. You didn't check under the car. Okay, we'll do that next time. We had no idea we'd end up here. But now what you have is, I suspect, a public relations department in GM or Cruise that somehow doesn't want to come clean about this. My goodness, things that we learned that we didn't know about, the last thing you want to do is hide them. And as I've said so many times, the last thing you want to do is cover it up. I mean, we should be, praising it. Oh my goodness, we learned something here. We can fix this. It will essentially never happen again, or the probability of that is, 10 to the minus who knows how many. And we can move on from this. So I hope that what General Motors is doing when they're reducing what amount of money that they're going to continue to spend on Cruise is to basically fire the public relations department. I mean, GM went through this with respect to the key business because they didn't quite design very well or whatever, or didn't think that people would put that much weight on your keychain that it would turn on the car accidentally. That happened, 10 years ago? They covered that one up. We got no problem here. It was like a 2-cent fix. I don't know.
Why is the founder, someone who's been working on this for 20 years, over 20 years, this has been his life and Dan Kahn's life. Why is he more expendable than the CEO of General Motors, who has had these kinds of events occurring consistently, various kinds of things occurring from a safety standpoint? Why haven't they fired the CEO? No. Well, suddenly we have a different situation. We have a company that has been essentially left on its own, and now it's causing some problems for GM. So what do? He gave his resignation because he had to give his resignation. It wasn't like I'm going to leave this. Why would he want to do that? I want to fix this. I want this company to be good, to be doing what it's supposed to be doing.
I agree with you. I mean, they had a good guy in there,
Yeah, I think, I put my point out there. It came back. Several people came back to me and said, "Mike, you're way out of line." I said, fire the chairman of the board. Fire the chairman of the board of Cruise. Who is that person? It's the same person who's the CEO of General Motors. By the way, if you look at General Motors stock, what's General Motors stock been doing for the last 6 years or 7 years since they bought Cruise? What's the next pump up that they're going to do? I think it's not only unfair, but it's taking away from a business which has shown itself to be at least in the same league as Waymo. No one else has, but at least in the same league as Waymo, doing similar sorts of things. If you can bring back Sam Altman, you can bring back Kyle Vogt.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And I'd put another one on there. Yes, the origin vehicle is not the vehicle that necessarily I would design. Why? Because I think the main reason is that the vehicle is meant to give people rides. That's its design, is to give people rides. And I think I want to praise them for building a vehicle that's at least maybe not as many rides as you would like. Maybe it's only 4 or 6 or whatever, and it's not quite, but it is meant to give people rides. And why in the design of the vehicle to give people rides does it have to have LiDAR, schmidars, widars, who knows what's sticking out there like, Who knows? I don't. I mean, does it really need to be a Cybertruck? I don't know. I guess if you're out there and you're, in Elon land, why not? I guess. Okay, maybe. Or does it have to be an Etzel? Maybe. Okay. Etzel's, I mean, as I've said, you know, Cybertruck is cyber. This is Cybertruck week. It's coming out this week. It's either going to be over here or it's going to be over there. One doesn't know. But apparently, what sort of the initial data on Cybertruck is that every place where there's been a one put on display so far this week, everybody's scurrying to go see a Cybertruck, and they have velvet ropes around all of them. I don't know. And Jeffries said
no
that,
wonder he doesn't have to spend on advertising,
yeah,
right?
and Jeffries comes out and says downgrades the price of the stock, the expected price, and suggests that Tesla should get out of the Cybertruck business. Why? Because Jeffries is holding an enormous short position on that. Okay. And I mean, come on, Jeffries, cut it out. But, you know, do you have customers, Jeffries? Never mind. I guess I shouldn't say that, but
how did we get from Cruise to Cybertruck?
well,
Well,
no, we
that's the
got
next topic
because of
anyway.
the
It was a great
origin, because
segue,
there is
Alan.
a point that I'm trying to make about the origin vehicle.
Uh-huh.
At least
At
least General Motors was out there trying to put a vehicle, design a vehicle that is meant to give people rides, and do that efficiently, and go through and basically go to NHTSA and say, my goodness, really? We have to have a rear view mirror in this thing, even though we have cameras all over the darn thing. And really, if you really want to drive it, there will be a joystick in there to drive it. But my goodness, you have to have a steering wheel that has to have an airbag on it so that when you crash, it doesn't penetrate your chest. I mean, cut it out.
we're on different sides of the fence on this one.
Yeah, I know, but
Yep.
but at least they were trying to do that. Okay.
I don't know what they were trying to do. I mean, I
Well,
think
maybe
Honda was probably more responsible for that. I don't know. But
yeah, it may be,
yeah.
and it again may have been just a bunch of smoke and mirrors associated with trying to jack up the stock prices and so on, because it sort of looked good, whatever. But
Yeah.
I'll assume that what if one is going to go to we talked about the safe, if the self is that, it's like the intelligent cruise controls that we have in there. We just let go. Why do we have to steer when the darn thing steers better than us? I mean, cut it out. Do it for me instead of just looking over my shoulder. And then to the complete driverless piece, I don't know, to do it in a Jaguar. I guess it's kind of nice. People get to ride in a Jaguar, and of course it's a Jaguar, not a Jaguar, but it's Jaguar, and to do it in a Chevy Bolt. I mean, it's tight squeeze, okay, to get into the back seat, whatever. One needs a vehicle that is focused on giving people rides as opposed to being driven. Okay. The new Corvette is like great because, I mean, you're encapsulated. I haven't had the chance to sit in one yet, but I just perceive that it's great, and for the driver, I don't know what it looks like if you're riding shotgun on that sucker, and there's no back seat. Okay. So anyway, somebody should be out there developing a vehicle that gives people rides as opposed to a vehicle that is meant to be driven. Okay. Nobody out there is doing that. Cruise was the only one. All right. Zoox claims that they're maybe doing it. Okay. Otherwise, what are we going to end up having to do? I mean, China will give us, 20 different versions in a few years.
Exactly. Well, you'll be able to see a picture of an origin in our book, but you won't be able to see a picture of Zoox because they didn't give us permission to use it. So
We'll get to
And
that in a minute.
bam, and we got permission from someone who's going out of business.
We got
Oh.
permission from Cruise.
Geez, I mean,
Yep.
we're not very good, Michael.
Yeah.
We need to up our game.
Well, Alan, you brought up Tesla and the Cybertruck, their big event in Texas tomorrow. You went to another one of Elon's big events earlier this month. The launch. Any quick thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, of course I have thoughts. I
Starship.
think I just already just mentioned them. I think, to me, it's a play that's like the Etzel play, and what was that, 1958 or 7 or 6 or 5, or I even forgot the date of the Etzel.
Mhm.
It was a completely different design that I'm sure looked great to the designers. I guess I don't know how old I was. I thought they were really cool. Guess what? It just goes to show you who it, like, in the marketplace. People said what, and one has to wonder what the reaction's going to be. This isn't a Hummer. I mean, even though it could be a Hummer, this is complete. This is different. And it depends on the marketplace. And if for some reason people line up to buy this sucker, we have no idea what the price is. At least I haven't seen a price yet. It was supposed to be like 40K. But if it is 40K, I mean, it can't be 40K. They can't put it out that cheaply. I mean, otherwise, Jeffries is going to be able to get out and from their short positions very handsomely in a month or so. So as soon as the fourth quarter earnings reports come out, but whatever. And the anticipation of that, because can they really make a stainless steel bulletproof truck with four-wheel steering for 40K and make money? Really? I mean, I don't know.
Almost every
Michael.
estimate that's out there is significantly higher, at least 50% higher.
Yeah, well, it might be, and if you go out to try to buy a Lightning or even a normal Ford F-150 before you walk out of the showroom, Ford F-150s aren't inexpensive.
No. And Michael, in Sweden, Tesla has other problems besides a stainless steel
let's
truck.
talk
right?
about that one.
Have you? Is it in the news? Is this something that people are reading about?
Fleeting
yeah.
headlines for the most part, I
Fleeting,
think.
because
Yeah,
I
but
read I read the New York Times headlines every morning, and I haven't, maybe I've missed it, but I haven't seen anything in there about this. It's shown up in the CNN news that I also look at. I'll make it short. There are 130 employees of Tesla in Sweden who are responsible for fixing Teslas when they break. They're in 7 communities spread over a country that's about as big as the east coast of the United States and as wide as Pennsylvania. There's 7 of these places. They also have locations where you can get your Tesla fixed as part of other facilities, but they have 7 places where you can take your Tesla. As we know, Elon Musk is not a fan of unions, and there probably has been a lot of talk about how the United Auto Workers are now going to go to Tesla and try to unionize them. And oh boy, I mean, you're going to be in a big fight if you come at me with unions, says Mr. Musk. Well, Sweden is a country that has embraced unions, and unions are embedded. They're part of the way things work. And we have something in Sweden, it's called a collective agreement. And the collective agreement is that within an industry, and we have very few strikes. We have very few problems between workers and employers because of this. The agreements are negotiated within an industry, let's say people who work in places where cars need to be fixed, there's a collective agreement, and this has to do with basic pay, so that each individual is not coming into a place like they are now with Tesla and says, how much do you want? Well, I want this, and okay, you get that, but you don't get this, and you get this, and everybody's having their own little agreement within the collective agreements, which are part of every industry, not just not just manufacturing, but all industries, engineering, service workers, everyone. The collective agreements is basically this is how it works for everybody in the industry. And Elon Musk has essentially said, you can take your collective agreement and do something with it, but I don't want to have anything to do with it. None of my businesses anywhere are going to be unionized. So 130, we're talking about 130 people. Sweden is the third largest market for Teslas. And of course, it's the third largest market because you can't, if you want to buy a Tesla, you just go to the government and says, I want to buy a Tesla, here's the money. You don't pay any taxes for X number of years. Here it is, because we support electric cars. It's not just Tesla, it's any electric cars. So it's a large market. So it's not a market that he would just normally kind of walk away from, although it's not 10%, it's more like 1% of their total sales. So the union called a strike. And what the strike essentially says is that we're going to put out our union people are going to come out. We don't know how many people inside of the Tesla facilities are unionized, very few. But we're going to call a strike, and our union is going to put up a picket at your facilities, your 7 facilities and your other facilities. Okay, that's fine. Doesn't bother us. Nothing's going to happen. We're not going to sign your agreement. This is 4 weeks ago. Okay, so step 1, we call a strike. Step 2, parts aren't delivered because you have a sympathy strike on the part of the truck workers. Step number 3, we're not going to clean your facilities. Step number 4, we're not going to unload your cars. Step number 5, well, in between there, 50% of the companies who have agreements with Tesla to buy company cars from Tesla said, no, we support the union. The last straw, and this was the one that broke the Musk camel back, it finally got him to talk, was that the postal workers stopped delivering the mail. Oh, big deal. There are only 7 places, send us an email. The mail, and the reason why the mail is important is that when they deliver the mail, they deliver the license plates for the cars. And the license plates for the cars can't be delivered by any DHL or anybody else. They have an agreement that the postal company delivers. It's not a Swedish Post. It's a postal company. They have to deliver this. And of course, if you can't put a license plate on your car, even if you sell the car, you can't drive the car. You might be able to, temporary license for a day or so. So this finally, Musk says, this is madness. This is insane. How can they do this? Next day, 2 suits are filed, one with the postal company and the other with the organization called Transportstyrelsen, the Transport Administration, saying this is illegal. You can't do this. You're pointing out us, and this is discriminatory. So the same day, a little court in a little schmilzy town in the south says, oh, you're right. We got to start delivering. Hey, wait a minute. The next day, no, hey, not so fast. So 5 weeks now have passed, and Tesla is saying, we're not going to sign any agreement, so you can keep going on as you're going. And all the while, there's a small minority of people in Sweden who hate unions, just really dislike unions, and it is a very small minority. I'm not included in that small minority.
We couldn't tell, Michael.
No, you couldn't tell. And there's a very large group of people who want to see this guy, whatever you can say about him, he really is, to do this, to make a point out of, we don't care how things work in Sweden. I'll sell my cars to you, but I'm not going to follow your rules, your regulations. He came here once. He went to a party for the former ambassador under the former guy had an ambassador here who was, of course, kicked out as quickly as he could. He lands his plane about 10 miles away from where we live here, went to a party. 50% of the people who went to the party got COVID, admitted that they got COVID, including him. And so that's the story. This is a saga, and I'm putting all of this, and I'm writing this as things happen. This is going to be in the next issue, and it's going to be along with this, with the article. It's going to be combined with the article, with the piece about the United Auto Workers and how both of these folks are fighting for their livelihoods. So stay tuned.
Rob Maurer reported on this also, that I have, and Rob apparently, at least as he put it, Tesla got some sort of court order that they can go to who knows where, like Denmark or something like that, or someplace else, and pick up the licenses themselves or something. And it's that was overruled.
There was a ruling, I think, this week as well, right?
This all happened in the last 2 days.
Yeah.
It was overruled.
Oh, it was overruled.
It was overruled.
The underruled was overruled, and
the underruled was overruled. The last word hasn't been. The last word hasn't been.
I mean, talk about a tempest in a teapot. Whatever.
130 workers. 130 workers, and causing all of this pain because one guy, the head of the organization, says no unions, no way, no unions. So we'll see.
Terrific. Well, you guys are going to have like follow-ups to your book after it comes out. We're about a month away from the release of the book, The Real Case for Driverless Mobility. So.
Yes. We finished all of the edits last week.
Yes. So Michael, you think I should join the folks here who want to unionize the faculty at Princeton University? And I think there's one guy somewhere here.
You're asking the wrong person.
Anyway, whatever.
So with the book, with all that's been going on with Cruise, I guess the message takes on even more urgency.
Yes.
Yeah,
it does.
Yeah, I think we're both in agreement with that. And to say what market Waymo should be in, or what market Cruise should be in, or what market who knows whom is going to do this should be in, it's the market of giving people rides who need rides. I mean, that is a need that is out there, and that's, you have two ways of getting from A to B. You can do it yourself, or you can get a ride.
But one of the things that I think we haven't really talked about the contents of the book, and we haven't really talked about the structure of the book, but simply what we did 2 years ago, or 2.5 years ago now, was we said we have put together what we think is a good structure for the seminars, the events, the symposium that Alain started, summits that we put together 5 or 6 years ago. And in that, we discussed a number of different issues. And the last one that we did, which was very comprehensive, and we did it as a remote because it was during COVID. We took all of those topics and we included those topics in the book. Who's going to build them? Who's going to operate them? Driverless vehicles. What is the business case for them? All of these topics are in the book, and we discuss this. And one of the things that when we discuss this Yeah, what's going to power them? You know, how are they going to be powered? But we had one um, seminar, hour and a half through a couple of hours, where we discussed who is going to build them, who's going to design them, and who's going to operate them. And it's not the same company. I mean, we had some really good people in this topic who have been dealing with these issues for many years. General Motors is in the car building business. It thought it was in other businesses a while ago. It thought it was in the service business or mobility as a service business. And all of these companies who thought they were in that business have realized if they're not in the car business, they're out of business. But there are other companies who provide services. Google is not. Google is in the advertising brokering business. That's their business. That's what they do. If they've got somebody doing something else, they're in another bet, which eventually they will be put into an organization that's able to use what they do. So they bought YouTube. They brought YouTube in, and it's generating 20, 24, $25 billion a year in revenue for them. But the revenue is coming from search. It's coming from selling not search, but it's from advertising. It's coming from selling advertising. I think that the companies that will provide the rides are not the companies that are going to build the cars, and they're not the companies that are going to develop the hardware and the software and everything else that will make these cars operate. They're not the ones who are going to make the chips. If there is a company that's going to do everything, I don't see it. It's not on my planet. I don't have it in my radar. Certainly it's not going to be Google, because Google doesn't do this. It certainly isn't going to be General Motors, because General Motors doesn't have a clue as to how to deliver services. And the thing that we can say about Tesla's made a point in saying, we're going to put cars out that are self-driving. You buy one of our cars and you let somebody else drive that car, whether they want to drive it or whether they want to sit there and sleep while it's going. That's up to them, but the car will be able to do all of these things. So Tesla's in the car business. It's not in the car selling business. It's not in the service business. SpaceX is in the putting up. They're not in the rocket business. They're in the putting things up in space business. I mean, we've got to get the terms correct to understand why Waymo has said we're in the autonomous driving business. We're not in the ride business. We're not in the Uber business. We're not in the search business. We're in the autonomous, they say, autonomous driving business. So do I think that it's necessary for a company that wants to be able to provide rides, to build the cars, to provide the complete infrastructure, provide everything, and put all of those things in place, and then to do this, to scale this up across the, no. I think that's a completely irrelevant approach to doing this, because every market is going to be different, that situations are going to be different, and one company is going to have a very difficult time delivering rides if it thinks it's going to do it in Scranton as well as in New York and Philadelphia and Phoenix. There are lots of people who can operate businesses providing rides, and they can do it in very different ways, as long as they have the vehicles that are capable of doing it. And what we're trying to put in the book, what we're trying to say in the book is there is a need, and that need isn't getting people from business meetings in downtown New York to LaGuardia Airport. The need is providing rides for people who really need to have rides and are not being served by the current markets. And that's a very large group of people.
And that's how we get to the point where you could hit a $50 billion valuation, maybe at scale, because there are so many people that need a ride, but they're not the people that go to the airport. Okay. they're not that. It's everything else that it could be done. It's all the people that don't go to places now where they could. And I've said, since the beginning when I was doing turn by turn navigation and pioneering that, which I think I did, the real value of turn by turn navigation is what? It's to get people to who never go anywhere to then go places. Why? Because now if they have something that will allow them to get there, but that's not even the most important piece. It will give them peace of mind that they'll be able to get home. Oh my goodness, it's a life changer. Not only am I worried about getting there, oh my goodness, I'm going to get lost or da 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 da. But wherever you end up, these things trivially bring you home. Wow. And this. I don't think Cruz ever said that.
No.
Okay, even though when they went into San Francisco, we said in here, we praised them for only operating at night. Why? Because they could get all the people who went to the bars and the restaurants who had too much to drink and bring them home. Oh my goodness. And people were more than willing to go out and maybe have an extra. Not that they should, not that we recommend that. But if they did, they had a way to get home. Boom. Did San Francisco ever praise them for doing that? No. Oh, you ran over a fire hose. Oh, you blocked a vehicle that could have backed up and, gone around you very. No, they decided, like the New York Times article yesterday. I mean, whatever. Come on, New York Times. When did you become, a tabloid?
Hmm.
Whatever. we hit everybody.
Well, and the book again is The Real Case for Driverless Mobility. And when it comes to providing rides, Alan, one last thing from the upcoming newsletter is
Yep.
you could be a football player and need a ride.
My goodness, an Arizona Cardinal got a flat tire in his BMW to change the tire. But of course, BMW doesn't provide you a tire to change. I guess this doesn't he know that you can run flat? Or never mind. So he pulls in the gas station and sees a family pumping gas. They must have been pumping their own gas. It wasn't New Jersey where they would be having the gas pumped for them, and saw kids wearing Arizona Cardinal gear and said, "Hey, I'm one of the stars of the team. I need to get there, whatever." Oh, of course, I need a ride. Now, luckily, I mean,
Luckily, they had
yeah.
a car that was big enough to get him in.
Probably. I mean, the kid's here on my lap. I don't know. Hopefully, it wasn't. It was whatever. I don't know. But people
Yeah.
need rides, and the thing that's sort of the punchline of our book is that if you can develop the technology to have a computer do this, then it turns out that at scale, the cost of delivering that ride is so small that it can be so affordable to anybody. So now affordability is not the issue. Equity is not the issue. It's not going to care whether you're black, white, orange, or whatever, or whether you're a football player or a whatever.
A
And
pundit.
you can go there and you can get a ride when you need a ride. When the customer decides that this is, when they would like to go from A to B. I mean, that is just an enormous value proposition, and do it reasonably safe. Ultimate safety. I mean, it's unachievable or if you're trying to solve the snow problem or the fog problem or who knows what problem. Waymo and those guys don't want to come to Jersey because there might be snow sometime. What about all the days when there isn't snow? Just look how much good you could be doing. And who's maybe the New York Times wants you got to do it perfectly for everybody. I mean, otherwise, my goodness, well, get out of here, New York Times.
I agree.
Well,
out of
Alan,
New York Times.
this story would have been much better for us if it had been Waymo that picked him up and took him to the stadium. But
Well, no, yeah, yes and no, but hey, if you really think about it, we should be so neighborly in our neighborhoods that anybody, anytime in our neighborhood who can bum a ride from us should welcome into my car. Why isn't somebody developing the communications, the X or the Twitter, the whatever that easily makes people to just give a ride to somebody, as this family decided to do for this person? Why? Because, well, of course, I mean, it fits, but why does it need that kind of fit to just give somebody a ride to where you're going? What's the big deal?
Well, I think you've had this company. I believe the woman's up in Maine.
Yeah,
Runs a service for older adults, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Catherine Freund in ITN America. They're trying to get senior volunteers to do what really technology should be able to do. But it's great if you have a person and a person do it, no problem. Not trying to displace those entities. It's just that the opportunity to extend that service opportunity, and as Michael said, in the end, this is a service business. It's a ride, it's a ride, it's a ride, it's a ride. It's like a latte, a latte, a latte, a latte. This is where this is how one is delivering both the value and the profit opportunity. Because if it only ends up costing us something like $250 a ride to break even, a lot of people are probably willing to pay you $350. And if you can put $1 in your pocket for each ride, and it's a good ride, and you have customers saying, and maybe even tipping you another $1, who knows what? You can get to the valuation, but it has to be thought of as a service business. As Michael pointed out, it is that service piece for which you're going to need the mechanism. These folks need the coffee. They need the water. They need the. This is a fake one.
I
do
either that
this to
or
people
either that or very old. I wasn't sure.
No, anyway,
the book again. We only got a month to wait for it.
Yeah,
is the real
yeah, we
case for
can't wait.
driverless mobility. So,
anyway,
thank you once
you.
again, Michael, for spending time with us.
A pleasure.
I
Always.
understand you've got a new family member on the way. That computer, is that right?
Oh, yeah, goodness, yeah. I had to go and pick up the old ones just to be able to have our call, but the new ones, it's still being readied. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's in the incubator.
You deserve a new computer. I mean, a 10-year-old computer is.
It's 10. Yeah, it's 10
wait,
years
wait,
old.
Wait. You got to have one of these. You got to have one of these, man.
What is that? Oh yeah, a slide rule. Yeah.
My slide rule. I still have it, man. I'm ripping, raring to go.
Excellent. Well, thank you again. And the website is michaelsena.com. You can find us at smartdrivingcar.com, also on Spotify, TuneIn, Apple, Google, Amazon, wherever you turn to for podcasts. Smart speakers can play us too. You can find my tech reports at textination.com. I'm Fred Fishkin along with Alain Kornhauser. Thanks for listening or watching. Please continue to stay safe.
Thank you, everybody.